I cannot believe I am saying this, but it is week 6 already. Good God, we are here as we are every single Thursday. Fantasy Football Live, you know who we are at this point. You know what we're doing. We're going all the way up to kickoff. We're going to get your fantasy football lineup set, not just for tonight, but for the whole weekend. We're going to give you a recap on the standings currently for one competition happening between all of us. We have a bunch to get into. They've already signed Andy Behrens, Matt Harmon. I'm Jason Fitz. Gentlemen, let's start with the most important part of this. How did I not get the plaid shirt lumberjack memo? Like, is there a group text I'm not part of? Like, are we hiding this from me? Like Harmon has now combined the perfect beard with the perfect plaid shirt. I'm sure he has an axe somewhere in this. Like, he's just throw up on the shoulder. I'm in Nashville. I could have easily gone somewhere and gotten a plaid shirt. Matt, why didn't you text me and tell me, hey, it's plaid shirt day, buddy?
Dude, you're lucky I'm ever talking to you again after that DJ Moore nonsense from last week, honestly. So, yeah, listen, you're lucky again that we're even communicating with you, because I am still very sad, very hurt, and very offended by what happened with this contest last week. And frankly, I'm not excited to talk about it later. So I'll at least take your compliments for now. That'll do.
Was Fitz not declaring this contest rigged just like 7 days ago? Was I not on that show? Did that not happen?
I can neither confirm nor deny any accusations. All I can tell you is that it is rare. I like to call certain games in the NFL a beer game. And what I mean by a beer game is about halfway through the game, you're no longer paying attention. You put your feet up, you're having a beer. You know your team's got it won. That rarely happens. In fantasy football, it particularly rarely happens. I'm telling y'all, after Thursday night, when I not only got my prop bet, but also had DJ Moore playing, I didn't even pay attention to the standings after that. I knew I whooped both your asses combined. We will get into that. Let's take a look now at our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks. You know the drill. I'm going to give you a word that we associate with Ram Trucks, and you're going to give me a word, that player that associates with that word. Andy, let's go. I like this one. Luxury.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert is a luxury running back. There's really no question about it. He's actually the overall RB2 on the season right at this moment, thanks to a ridiculous, 8 touchdowns through 5 games so far. He is just yet another of Miami's offensive track stars. Mostert and the Dolphins are facing Carolina this week in a game that is not likely to be competitive for very long. That obviously sets up really well for the run game. Carolina is allowing almost 5 yards per carry on the season, over 140 rushing yards per game. And, Devon Achane was placed on IR this week, so Mostert, again, firmly back atop the backfield hierarchy here. He's going to see a ton of work in this one, at least while it's competitive. I expect him to find the end zone at least once.
Yeah, by the way, I went in getting ready for this show, and I was all sorts of, I got my word. I was ready to bring in Mostert for my word, but can't do that. So I had to veer things up. Andy wins all over the place here. My word is powerful, all right? Powerful. And when I think powerful, I'm going with TJ Hockenson. The Vikings tight end taking on the Bears. Obviously, the Bears are not a big matchup here. But really, when you talk about a powerful opportunity in this offense, with no Justin Jefferson and everybody scrambling to figure out what it means for the Vikings, don't get it twisted. Even though the Vikings haven't played well, and even though Kirk Cousins isn't winning a lot of football games, he's put up massive numbers. There is going to be more target share to TJ Hockenson simply because there has to be more target share. There are very few guys in this offense catching balls that he can trust to that level. I think Addison can grow up to be that one, but it's not that right now. So TJ Hawkinson's going to get way more target share than he's used to. Seems to me like he's a powerful part of the Vikings game plan, and against a bad Bears defense, I like that one a lot. No offense, Andy. I'm sorry. I wasn't throwing shade at you. I promise. All right, Matt.
The Bears are back.
Well, sure. They're back to something. All right. So Matt, your word is capability. Capable. Who you got?
Well, capable. That's an easy one. Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Drake London. We know he is plenty capable when his quarterback can play well and when his coach wants to uncork things a little bit in the passing game. We saw it last week. Desmond Ridder, I know we're doing this kind of like up and down, up and down, up and down with Desmond Ridder's performance, but he was, I think, probably the best he's been in his career so far. Last week, he ranked 4th among all quarterbacks in adjusted net yards per attempt. In week 5, he avoided sacks, he avoided, crushing, brutal mistakes, and he made some really nice throws. Like, the guy does have tools. So if Desmond Ridder can be good, I think that's good for Drake London, who had a great contested catch down the sideline to kind of ice that game last week. He also threw a pass, didn't even know Drake London could throw left-handed passes. That that was cool to see. But most importantly, he's getting a Commander secondary that has been blessed by A.J. Brown and DJ Moore the last 2 weeks. They're talking about, are we going to play 165-pound Emmanuel Forbes, the rookie cornerback, this week? We're not totally sure there yet. Man, I think Drake London can have another big fantasy game in this week.
I cannot believe this shows you how up and down this season's been. That we're at the spot where we're like, now look what Atlanta did. Nobody saw that coming. But a great pick by you. No matter what you're looking for in a light-duty truck, the 2023 Ram 1500 has got you covered. Score yours at ram.com. All right. We're going to get everybody involved in this conversation now. It's time to make your pick. You know what's going to happen. We're going to look at some tough flex decisions with multiple players for users submitted via social media and through the Fantasy app. If you guys aren't aware of this, by the way, check out the Fantasy app. You can go out there. You can be part of the discussion on every single one of the player cards. Really fun way to do this. So, question number 1. Michelangelo, not the artist, but just a Twitter user, comes in and says, full PPR start 2. McLaughlin, Ford, Wilson Jr., and Saquon Barkley. Happy week 6. Andy, what do you got?
Oh, man, I feel like, first of all, this is really a question about whether he should start McLaughlin tonight, right? Dicey for Saquon Barkley. He was limited in practice all last week, didn't play, despite some pretty good midweek vibes. He's been limited this week, so we can't count on him. Jeff Wilson, I don't think we can count on either, right? He's coming back from a medley of injuries. Don't know how much he's going to play. It's a friendly matchup, but we're probably going to see, obviously, plenty of Mostert, plenty of Salvon Ahmed. I don't think I'd go with him either. So that leaves me by default to Jerome Ford, who has a nightmare matchup, but at least he's going to see touches. And I think I'd roll out McLaughlin tonight. It is full PPR. We don't know exactly what that workload is going to settle at for Jaleel McLaughlin, but he looks so good in the screen game. Like it's really difficult to imagine they're not going to find 3 or 4 passing game opportunities for him each week.
Yeah, Bob, I'm just saying right now, you got Michelangelo. Just be honest with your buddies you're playing in the league with. If you win with that as your running back tandem, then you should just don't talk. You just got to admit, better to be lucky than good. All right, let's get question number 2 here. Terry asking Raiders legend Jacoby Myers. Yeah, I slipped that part in. Michael Thomas, James Cook, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf. Pick 2. Harmon, what do you got?
Ooh, baby, this is legitimately a really tough one here. I'm going to push James Cook to the side. I'm going to push Michael Thomas to the side. How many do I get here? Do I get 1 or 2? Do I get 1 or 2?
We'll get 2.
I get 2. Perfect. Okay, cool. Cook and Thomas to the side. It's between these 3 other receivers here. Man, Jacoby Myers, what a good player fits. If only there was a website on the internet that would have told you Jacoby Myers was one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. I sure wish that one existed. It would be nice if the guy wearing the plaid shirt would run it. Anyways, point being here, I think I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers in the revenge game. And I think you got to go with DK Metcalf. It's close between him and DeAndre Hopkins, who's continuing to get a ton of usage, but it's a tougher matchup. It's the London game. So I'll go with Myers and Metcalf here. It's very close with him and Hopkins.
After what I saw in London last week, I'm not sure anybody trusts anything out of London, so good call by you. All right, pull up. Yeah, I'm done trying to predict those. Question number 3. Lunar Tick says full PPR, wide receiver, running back, and flex from Nakua, Waddle, Ridley, Swift, and Camaro. What do you think, Andy?
First of all, how funny is it that, what would you have thought 6 weeks ago if I would have told you that Puka Nakua would be the obvious one here, right? And we have to play him, and then it's just a question of the other 4. I think Puka is clearly in this one. For me, I probably go, it's close between Kamara and Swift. A bit of a difficult matchup for Swift this week, so I probably lean Kamara there. Ton of workload flowing his way. And then it's Ridley and Waddle. Ridley's already seen Indianapolis this year, and he had a great game against them in the opener. But I think I'm going to go Waddle. Better player, first of all, I think. I think Waddle is a wonderful player. We don't have Achane in this one. That probably helps him to some extent. I think he probably goes off in the first half of this game. He's looked really good the last couple weeks.
Waddle has a better headshot there, too. That's of all the reasons. I mean, the smile there is $1 million. All right, well, let's get one more of these in for right now. Carl saying 5 for 2 flex spots. Deebo Samuel, Jordan Addison, Amari DiMarcardo, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams. Standard scoring. What do you got, Harmon?
Oh, man, Carl, come on. You need to be sending all these in. Jameson Williams is not a viable play until you see it first. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is pretty much in the same spot. DeMercado's interesting, but, the team listed Keontae Ingram as the RB1 on the depth chart for whatever that's worth. It might be worth nothing, but I still think your two guys here are Deebo Samuel and Jordan Addison. Look, I get it that Deebo Samuel, he's been a little bit out in the cold lately, but you cannot bench any of these 49ers players, okay? Because they could easily go off at any point we just saw last week with George Kittle, 3 touchdowns. So you're playing Deebo, and I think Jordan Addison's your other guy here.
Before we move on, though, I want to ask both of you guys as the experts, why is it with San Francisco? Because so often when we see, okay, you got a bunch of guys, any guy could go off, that becomes a hesitation for taking a player. Is there not some hesitation? So you never know if it's going to be Deebo, if it's going to be Ayuk, if it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Can you really trust, Andy, all 3 of them every week?
Well, they've pretty clearly established that you can trust Christian McCaffrey every week, right? He literally scores a touchdown every week. He's never not scored with that team. So him we can always trust. This whole crew was so close to all of them going off last week too, right? Deebo had a big play negated by penalty. That sort of thing happens occasionally. Yeah, I think you got to roll them out there because the upside to any one of these guys in any given week is what we just saw from Kittle, right? It's the 3-touchdown game. We've had the multi-touchdown game from Ayuk, obviously, already this year. There's big stuff coming from Deebo. You got to just keep rolling them out.
Matt, you agree?
Yeah, look, I think Ayuk is an every week guy at this point. I think all these guys are every week plays just because, again, you want to win your week, okay? And I get consistency is so overrated in fantasy. You should be able to live with these ups and downs because every player has ups and downs. Andy and I talk about this on the podcast all the time. Outside of even Justin Jefferson is capable of having a slow game. We saw it a little bit last year in his legendary performance. Maybe Cooper Kupp 2021 is the only guy who never had any down games. Other than that, there's going to be peaks and valleys, but in this offense, in this ecosystem, and frankly, the same thing is true in the Eagles offense too. We've seen that as well. The peaks are just all the way up here. Deebo will win you a week all on his own. So chasing that level of peak as opposed to just a normal offense's level of peak will be worth the strife every single week.
Speaking of peak, Travis Etienne peaked week 5, 34.4 fantasy points. We're going to check in with what you guys had to say about it in a moment. But Austin Eckler had this to say about the Jags running back on this week's Eckler's Edge. Check it out.
The first 4 weeks I really see as, late September, early October is kind of you're getting your feet underneath you. What type of team do we have? Where are we having success with? Who's playing at a high level? What's working? What's not? And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was just getting a feel for how this season is going to play out for them offensively. There could have been some just mismatches where it actually benefited with Travis, in this game. And he could have just popped off this game, and it was maybe one of those where it was a one-time thing, and now maybe they're struggling again. The thing is, we don't know. Obviously, they have, some type of expectation for them to be able to lean on him in their offense. Obviously, he had 30 touches. When you have that many touches, you get that volume. That's a good guy to have in your fantasy over time if they're going to continue to lean on him. And he better have those types of games, right? He's got to be able to pop off and have games like that if they're going to be giving him the ball that many times. And so I think it was just a matter of time. I'm sure we'll see more of that in the future as their offense starts to click a little bit more.
All right, the message boards are blowing up in the fantasy app. You can get in on the conversation in the Discuss tab, one of my favorite things we have. Here are the 3 players with the highest winning percentage for fantasy managers who started them last week. It's interesting. You got Etienne and Jamar, and then at the top, I don't know, DJ Moore. Somebody on this show might have told you last week to go ahead and start him. 85% of managers who started him won, just like this guy. But I do like this comment from DZ on Etienne. If you benched a running back that has 80% of the snaps and touches this season on a good offense, and maybe fantasy football isn't your thing. The only thing I'd say, Harmon, is maybe this isn't an outlier. It just feels like this year more than some other years. It feels like if you got the guy that luckily goes off this week, I'll admit luck with DJ Moore, you're just going to win that week. And you got the lucky guy, you're going to win.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some big high ceiling performances, right? Last week would have been a perfect example. Somebody might have had DJ Moore on Thursday Night Football, and it's kick back. You said the beer game. I don't need to worry about this for the rest of the week. And then, oh, wait, your opponent on Sunday has Jamar Chase and Travis Etienne. And then you're back to sweating again, going into Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football or something. So, yeah, there's been some outrageously large performances, but I'm with DZ there. Shout out to DZ. A guy like Travis Etienne, even if the results aren't there, if the workload's there, the expected fantasy points, and nothing is really changing from that workload perspective, eventually he's going to get right, especially if he's a good player. And frankly, I do think Travis Etienne's a very good player.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. It is still London. I can't figure any of that out. I need you guys to help me to figure out next man up, because we've got injuries stacking up around the league and trying to figure out, because these injuries are the key fantasy producers. We've lost Jefferson, as I mentioned earlier, Achane to injured reserve, Anthony Richardson not around. Andy, when I say next man up to you, what's a name that comes to mind for you as somebody you think can step up?
Yeah, the first I'm probably thinking of is Amari DiMercato, already mentioned on the show. He's an undrafted rookie from TCU. He's the next man up when James Conner exits with a knee issue. Terrible situation, because first of all, the run on which Conner exited the game was like a 35-yarder. It was great. He's been terrific all season. But this is going to be a multi-week absence. DiMercato looked good. He carried 10 times for 45 yards. He found the end zone on an 11-yard score where he was breaking tackles. The only immediate threat to his playing time is Keontae Ingram, who's returning from a neck injury himself. He did practice on Wednesday. The depth chart, as Matt said, will tell you that Ingram is Conner's understudy. But man, Ingram has rushed for just 75 career yards on 39 carries. There's some talk that this could be a hot hand situation. Keontae Ingram has literally never had the hot hand in his NFL career, and DiMercato looked really good last week. So that's where I'm going.
That's savage, but true. Matt, who do you got as next man? I've never had a hot hand. Sorry. Matt, who you got?
Yeah, I'll go with Jalen Waddle here. And I know what you're thinking out there. Whoa, wait a second. Tyreek Hill, he's not hurt. What are we talking about Jalen Waddle, next man up? Well, I actually think that Devon Achane's absence is going to open things up for Jalen Waddle, because if you look at last season, there was basically just two dudes getting the football in Miami. It was Tyreek Hill and it was Jalen Waddle. All the scheme stuff was going to those two guys. This year, that's obviously changed because they're running the football extremely well. And then once Achane got in there, he became a guy that was commanding schemed up looks. 9.7% of the targets since week 3. He's been getting those, again, schemed up layup looks, especially obviously there was the 1 week against Buffalo where they were happening around the scoring area too. I think Achane's absence, one, takes some of the teeth out of the run game. Mostert will still be good. They'll still be pretty effective running the ball, but it takes some of that big play juice out. They're going to have to get that back from Jalen Waddle in the pass game. So I actually think in a weird way, he will be the next man up here to replace some of the juice lost by the rookie.
All right, Andy, you're the next man up to give us more juice. Who's next on your list for next man up?
Yeah, probably got to talk about the Khalil Herbert situation. He suffered a high ankle sprain last Thursday. He did it, by the way, on a play where he was going to attain the receiving yardage prop that I had taken on this very show, but he gets injured instead. And that means that Deontay Foreman is back in our fantasy lives. He was a healthy scratch for 4 weeks for the Bears, so he's fresh. This is a guy who rushed for over 900 yards last season in Carolina. Kind of know what he is. He's serviceable as a runner. He's not much of a factor as a receiver. I do think that down the road, maybe it's not this week, but probably the week after, Roschon Johnson is going to be the guy that you want when he clears concussion protocol. I'd expect at least a 60-40 split there. Johnson has been extremely efficient this season. He's averaged 4.9 yards per carry, over 5 yards per catch. He's plowing through tacklers every game. So that's a nice 1-2 punch for Chicago for however long Herbert is out. You look at the next 3 games for that team, too. It's Minnesota. It's the Raiders. It's the Chargers. These are relatively friendly running back matchups. So I expect these guys to really produce.
Wow. Speaking of the Vikings, I don't know how to feel about that little shade there. Matt, who do you got for us as another next man up?
Yeah, so we got to talk about Jordan Addison here. People have been talking about Jordan Addison all week, the rookie wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. And I get in fantasy where we're tempted to say, oh, he's the next man up. You take Justin Jefferson out, you boost the targets, you boost the projections for Jordan Addison. And generally, I think that is true. I obviously think he's going to be a little easier to project in fantasy without Justin Jefferson. The problem is here, Fitz, you said it really well, that he could eventually become like that guy, but so far in the NFL, he's been a big play threat. He's just like he did in college. He's been running these big post routes, big crossing routes. That's where his big plays have come, primarily against zone coverage, but you see him against press coverage, physical outside corners have given him trouble. He's a smaller guy. He's a good route runner, but he's not that explosive. And again, really struggled with press coverage. In the 4 games I charted for him so far this year, he has a 48.7% success rate versus press. That would have been second lowest among all the guys in 2022, ahead of only the great DJ Chark. So not only do fantasy managers need Jordan Addison to really step up here, the Vikings do too, for him to replace what is essentially an irreplaceable player in Justin Jefferson. Just last point on this, like, I get it that Addison's slice of the pie will be better, but now the entire dish is going to be smaller, and it's going to taste a lot worse with Justin Jefferson not in the mix here.
That's a personal foul for you for saying DJ Chark and not singing it to the Baby Shark song, like DJ Chark, 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 DJ. Make
a play, and then maybe I'll sing his name. Make a play.
Okay, quickly, before we move on, Andy, one, I want to get a quick thought on Anthony Richardson. Neither of you guys mentioned anything with Next Man Up on, but we did mention the injury earlier. For everybody that's trying to hold him to see what he looks like later in the year with the injury history, is he worth banking on late in the season to you?
It's a good question. I think I'd probably only do it if I actually had an IR spot, right? Like most leagues, most Yahoo fantasy leagues are going to be one quarterback leagues, and you really just have to move on. And it is hard to hold a guy for 4 weeks, potentially 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. I mean, he's good. We've seen the upside. The upside is you get 2 rushing touchdowns and a couple of passing scores, which is great. But I think if you need the roster spot, especially as the buys hit, you probably have to move on from him.
I definitely wasn't asking because he's in some of my leagues. It's fine. All right, let's move on now to primetime picks. I can't wait. We've been waiting all day. Pull up the standings. Let's see what the graphic looks like. I can't even imagine who's in number. Oh, is it possible? Is that? Oh, man, the headshot looks good. The total points I mean, Andy, you know what we're trying to do here. Like, we're trying to actually score points here. Are we reading that right? 13 points?
13? Is that an error? Is that a graphic error?
That is not a graphic error.
That can't possibly be right. I don't believe it. Anyway, as you've said many times, Fitz, it's a rigged contest.
Oh, okay. Well, I only say that when I lose. All right. So as you can see from the standings here, we now know who's in first, second, and third. Yet again, another big victory for the underdog. The kid's coming in strong. But that means that, as you can see, the draft order is going to be different than you might be used to if you've only watched once or twice. Matt, you get to pick first. And remember, the way Primetime Picks works, we are going to pick one, but we can each only pick one player from each of the primetime games. So we have Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, which means we have some dog-you-know-what games to pick from here. So, Matt, knowing that we have Broncos, Chiefs, Giants, Bills, Cowboys, Chargers, you good, sir, on the clock. Who are you taking first?
I'm confident I'm going to Galaxy brain this and really screw myself. By the way, picking first in this contest sucks, okay? Because I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of dust when I come back on my second and third pick here. But like Andy said, it is rigged. So I'll go number 1 overall here. I filibustered enough. I'm going to decide on taking Stephon Diggs here. 1, for the brand. 2, great player. And 3, he should be able to tear up the Giants defense. And frankly, I don't know how many other players I want to be picking from that game as it is.
All right, that means Andy's on the clock and Stephon Diggs is off the table. Who you got?
Yeah, that's good process by Harmon there, because there's one clear choice in that game, and that deserves the number 1 overall pick. I'm going to take one from tonight's game, because there's like 2 clear choices in this one, and Travis Kelce is a little bit banged up. He's got the ankle, so I'm going to go Isaiah Pacheco. As discussed earlier, like, he gets the best possible matchup for any running back tonight. It is a defense that has allowed a dozen touchdowns to opposing running backs. I want him. He's fine in the end zone at least one. I don't think he's going to have the DJ Moore game from last week exactly. Like, I'm probably not going to be resting comfortably after this one, but I think he's my best option here.
Both of you guys have made stellar picks here, and that makes my job a little difficult, but I get 2 picks in a row now because of the snake draft style. So I'm going to start maybe with a little bit of homer love for Yahoo Sports. Obviously, we played him earlier, Eckler's edge. Austin Eckler expected to be back in this game, and the only way I'm going to have any chance is if he's back and he's back to 100% of who he can be. We just saw the Cardinals a couple of weeks ago run all over the Cowboys. I'm going to hope that that's like a sign of something to happen, and that Harmon, who's on that show with him, isn't making that face because he knows something I don't know, because this could turn into an ugly, ugly week for me if Eckler doesn't play. And in the spirit of this, let's just make it a theme. I'll come around the bend and I will give you Kelce. Like, maybe it's the all-injury team right now, but there's only one other clear-cut person that I look at this and say, okay, this one makes sense to me. I will go with Kelce here and hope that the love and caring of Taylor Swift being in the building will be enough for that ankle to feel better, and all of a sudden haters going to hate all the way to his, 40 points tonight. So that gets us through my 2 picks. Andy, you're now back on the board.
Yeah, I literally don't want anyone other than Diggs in that Buffalo Giants game, and I want everyone who's playing in the Chargers Cowboys game. So give me Tony Pollard here. I think it's a get right week for him, for the entire Cowboys offense, really. He hasn't been bad this season. I know people are complaining a little bit, but he hasn't been bad at all. He also leads all running backs in red zone carries inside the 10-yard line, carries inside the 5-yard line. Like that dam has got to break at some point. He's got to find the end zone. I think it happens in this one.
All right, and that brings us back to the top of the order. Andy, Matt, you now have 2 straight picks. I'm trying to skip Matt here. You have 2 straight picks.
Yeah, please don't skip me. Listen, this is what sucks about this game. Having the first overall pick is not as cool as having 2 picks in the top 4. This is totally rigged for Fitz. I want to know who he's got in his pocket. Anyways, I'll go ahead and take CeeDee Lamb here. They're struggling to get him the football. I think they can get him the football against the Chargers defense that's rather unserious. Not quite as unserious as Denver, but pretty unserious. And that brings us back, unfortunately, to Thursday Night Football. And I knew I galaxy brained myself here. And there's quite literally, like you guys are talking about, no one from Sunday Night Football. At least there's like Gabe Davis. I'd kill for Gabe Davis now over one of these guys from this Thursday night game. I guess I'll go Javonte Williams here. He is the starting running back for the Denver Broncos. Theoretically, yeah, Fitz's face says it all. I'm such a jackass. I said at the top of the show, there's nobody you can play in Denver, and now I'm going to go ahead and play somebody from Denver in this contest. So I just get nervous when it's 3 receivers, so I'll take 1 running back here, and God help me, it's Javonte Williams.
Oh, Andy, you're on the clock. Let's see if it goes easier for you.
Yeah, Harmon exposing himself as a fraud again. That's my favorite thing about this contest to date. I'm gonna go ahead and take Gabe Davis. I can take someone from that game. He's got touchdowns in 4 straight games. He gave us 100 yards last week. You know, he's a roller coaster ride of a player normally, but he's on a nice little streak right now, and I do not believe that the Giants can stop it.
That, unfortunately, I may have miscalculated a little bit here because I'm left with not much out of this game. I don't trust anybody from the Giants at all. Like, nobody from the Giants. So now I'll have to take off the scrap heap from the Bills. So I'll go with James Cook. I don't know that I feel wildly confident about going with James Cook, but I have now swung. This is all for me rolling the dice on injury. The only chance I'm going to have is if 2 guys are they're playing like there's not a single injury amongst the crowd. You guys, by the way, can chime in. We post these. You can let us know who you think's going to win, how you think it's going to go, and I'll let you guys know most weeks you're as wrong as we are. Just for the record, the number of times I walk away and I feel terrible about my roster, those are the weeks I usually do pretty well. So Harmon, if Harmon wins, is he allowed to complain about picking first again ever? I just asking
yes.
for. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I can't stop the complaints, but I can move us along. Those are your primetime picks. Now, each week, Sal Vetri offers up unique fantasy advice here on the show. So let's check in with Sal's 7 key findings from this week, which includes the following.
Welcome back to the key findings. Let's break it down for week 6. Finding number 1 takes us to a sneaky stud wide receiver. And this sneaky stud is Zay Flowers, who has earned 10 or more targets in 3 of his first 5 career games. Flowers has been the clear wide receiver 1 for Lamar Jackson, earning 29% of Lamar's targets. And his role has improved the last 2 games. For the first couple of weeks of the season, he was only targeted in the short areas of the field. But over the past 2 games, his average target distance is 16 yards, and he's accounted for 40% of the Ravens' air yards. This usage is going to lead to big plays for Zay Flowers, and you could still buy low on him because he hasn't scored a touchdown or topped 80 yards this year. Finding number 2 is the best spot of the week. And this takes us to Kyren Williams, who was in the sketchy spot of the week last week, having just 6.7 fantasy points against the Philadelphia Eagles. But 1 week later, and he finds himself in the best spot as a 7-point home favorite against the Cardinals' 25th ranked run defense. And the Cardinals allow the 4th most receptions to running backs, which plays right into the skill set of Kyren Williams, who ranks 3rd in running back targets this year. Finding number 3 takes us to the sketchy spot of the week. And this sketchy spot is for Breece Hall, who just had 194 total yards on 25 touches. This season, Hall ranks 2nd amongst all players, averaging 7.2 yards per touch, but now he's in a sketchy spot against the Eagles' number 1 defensive line. This unit just held Kyren Williams to 57 scoreless yards on 15 touches last week. And despite losing key pieces this offseason, the Eagles' defense ranks 2nd in stopping the run. This week, Breece Hall and the Jets are 7-point underdogs against Philadelphia, which is going to to lead to less rush attempts. And it should also lead to more snaps for Michael Carter, who ran 22% more routes than Breece Hall last week and commanded 100% of the 2-minute offense work. Finding number 4 takes us to a player who is trending up. And this player is Isaiah Pacheco, who over the last 2 weeks has seen 60% of the snaps and 70% of the rush attempts for the Chiefs. This has been the best 2-game usage stretch of his career, and it's led to 20 opportunities per game. Now, the downside for Pacheco is he's still not seeing the receiving game work, as it's Jerick McKinnon seeing the 2-minute offense snaps and Pacheco still running about 30 to 35% of the routes. So what we're basically getting is the Brian Robinson or Dameon Pierce role, but it's in a better offense that is going to get to the red zone more. And now here's one key piece of information. His matchups the next 3 weeks are fantastic. In week 6, he faces the Broncos' dead last defense. In week 7, he'll take on the Chargers' bottom 5 run defense. And then in week 8, he faces the Broncos yet again. Finding number 5 is a player who is trending down. And this player is James Cook, who has seen some concerning usage the past 2 weeks. In week 4, Latavius Murray saw more passing game usage, running more routes and seeing more targets than James Cook. And then in week 5, despite Buffalo trailing for most of the game, Cook only saw 38% of the clear passing down snaps. Here's the deal. Latavius Murray and Damian Harris have been more involved the past 2 weeks, totaling 48% of the team's snaps. Right now, James Cook is a hold, but if he has a big week and a good matchup against the Giants in week 6, look to trade him for a more stable asset. Key finding number 6 is the pickup in play of the week. And this would be the Chargers tight end Gerald Everett, who is coming off of the bye and finds himself in a favorable spot. He has 2 things going his way. 1, Mike Williams is out for the rest of the season, and 2, Donald Parham is trending to miss this game. Everett has played just 46% of the snaps in 3 games that Donald Parham started and finished. But when Parham left early in week 4, Everett ran a season-high 59% of the routes and was more involved in the red zone. Now, very quietly, Gerald Everett is top 12 in tight end efficiency this season, and that's on limited routes. Those should only increase if Parham is out. Finding number 7 is something to watch. And this would be Jameson Williams' usage for the Detroit Lions. Look, his week 5 debut started off rough. He dropped his first target of the game that would have went for 15 or more yards and a first down, and then his second target was a negative 3-yard screen pass. This is bad production, but the underlying usage was surprisingly good. Jameson Williams ran 50% of the routes, 3rd most on the team, and only 3 routes behind the wide receiver leader, Khalif Raymond, which means Jameson Williams is battling Marvin Jones on the outside for a starting spot, and in this game, he played more than Marvin Jones in the second half. Now, through 5 games this season, believe it or not, the Lions have the number 1 graded offense, and Jared Goff is number 2 in deep ball accuracy. This pairs well with Jameson Williams' skill set. If you still can, add him or buy low on him before he faces the Bucs' bottom 10 secondary. These have been the 7 key findings for week 6, and all you have to do now is take this information, grab it, and dominate your league mates.
Now I get to hang out with Sal, and I got to ask you right away about the Lions, because I listened to what you said about Jameson Williams, and all I kept thinking about is, what's that mean for everybody else? So if you have one of the myriad of other receivers for the Lions, are you concerned right now that you're going to see a dip in targets and production as they continue to get Williams more involved in the offense?
I wouldn't say a dip for any of the current starters. I think it's just going to pull direct snaps away from guys like Marvin Jones, maybe Khalif Raymond. But if we're looking at Josh Reynolds, who has his own role in the intermediate parts of the field, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who works out of the slot and is damn good at it, you look at Jameson Williams, and he's probably going to win more often downfield for you, or some speed and choice routes. So I think it's going to be his own specific role where he could win, and even within that role, probably somewhat limited in terms of how many targets he'll see.
All right, you guys can find more Sal on Fantasy, Yahoo Fantasy throughout the week. And, of course, follow him on all the social media at Sal Vetri, DFS. Now, Sal, he folds in with the rest of the guys, and we have a little bit of fun with play calling. You guys are throwing in the questions to us, hashtag AskFFL. We get it to the guys. Everybody chimes in. And just because Harmon looks saucy, he gets the first question today. Harmon looks like he's got a little, he's ready to fire off at somebody. Ryan asks, Rashid Rice, Terry McLaurin, KJ Osborne. If I knew Rice was getting the legit snap counts, I'd probably go there. KJ stepping into JJ's role is interesting. Harmon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, KJ Osborne is stepping into Justin Jefferson's role. I don't know that is going to go so well. Look, maybe I'm the sucker here. I don't think Rashid Rice is playing enough for you to totally trust him yet. I don't trust KJ Osborne, even against the Bears in Justin Jefferson's role. I'm going with McLaurin here. I'm going to be talking about why I'm upset at this offense later, but I still think I'm trusting the best player of this bunch, and that is definitely Terry McLaurin.
No, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this offense, because it is maddening to me. All right, the next question up is going to go to Andy. Andy, get ready. We got Waddle, Addison, or Hopkins, hashtag AskFFL. What do you think?
Oh, these are good options. This is a nice little squad here. I know that Hopkins is coming off a big week. Looks like he's getting healthier. Addison, another candidate to step into the Justin Jefferson role, which isn't really a role at all. He's a singularly talented player. But I'm gonna go Jalen Waddle here. I'm gonna go best player on the board. He saw 10 targets last week, found the end zone. I agree with Matt that the Achane injury probably tilts a little bit more work to his direction. I really like Waddle for like his first true blow-up game this week.
All right, Sal, the next one's coming to you. Question 3 comes up on the board. Gabe Davis, Drake London, or Josh Palmer? Help me decide, please, says Luke Partridge. What do you think, Sal?
Well, Luke, I can do exactly that. This one honestly surprises myself that I'm saying this, but I'm going to be going with Josh Palmer, who's coming out of the bye week. And as you were in the bye week, you would assume that this team wants to, probably replace the role of Mike Williams, spend some more time getting Josh Palmer into the offense. Before the bye, he actually led all the wide receivers in snaps, routes, targets. His average target downfield was 18 yards downfield. That's going to lead to big plays like the 51-yard catch you saw in week 4. Now through 6 games without Mike Williams in his career, for what it's worth, he is averaging over 8 targets per game and nearly 13 fantasy points. So I'll take Joshua Palmer.
I am in love with the next question, and I cannot wait to see how Harmon reacts to it. We don't get these very often. Irritable Mike, Saints defense or special teams at Houston, or Raiders defense special teams, woohoo, versus New England. What do you think, Harmon?
If this doesn't go right, you can go ahead and blame Scott Pianowski for this, but I'm kind of thinking it's the Raiders. I'll tell you what, I do think that Dennis Allen is going to bait CJ Stroud into his first interception this weekend. That's a really good spot there, real tough spot for a rookie quarterback, but Raiders at home, Mac Jones is terrible. That offense is a joke. Max Crosby, your boy Fitz, could probably get like 15 fantasy points all on his own in this game. So God help me, I think I'm going the Raiders here.
Let's take a look at the injury report coming out of practices today. Who are monitoring for the weekend? Some big names here that have impact to all of us. Jahmyr Gibbs, hamstring still up in the air after missing week 5. Mike Evans, also a hammy. Deshaun Watson, shoulder. Jacina Anderson reporting he is out this week with that shoulder injury. Miles Sanders, shoulder, did not practice today. And then there is one injury. There is one injury so significant that it actually brought Andy Behrens to his knees, at least to his fingers, to the keyboard, because there was a tweet from Andy Behrens about one particular injury for the great Sam Laporta. I don't know, Andy, if you're going to be okay. I don't know if you're ready for this, but the possibility that Laporta might actually miss a game, I think it's got you in your feels, buddy. You okay?
I am keeping a list of everybody who doubted Sam Laporta's calves, and you are on it now. No, I'm not okay. I'm very much not okay. There's not a player that I have more of across the fantasy portfolio than Sam Laporta, and I am serious. I will probably have to actually take a vacation day to go through the process of replacing him. I don't even know how many teams it is. It's crazy. We can't have it. Hopefully he's able to return to practice on Friday, and this is all just a nightmare. Hey Matt, what do you think about Mike Evans this week? He's obviously been fantastic this season. He's coming off the bye. We think he's at least back at practice. We think he's going to be good to go.
Yeah, a little sketchy that he missed the Wednesday practice, but I also kind of feel like we're overreacting to Wednesday practice misses. Like insiders are literally putting out like graphics, on Twitter, X, whatever it is. Like I think enough already with the overreaction to Wednesday practices, especially for veterans, but it is at least interesting to watch because hamstrings have been an issue for Mike Evans over the course of his career, especially as he's getting later here. So I'll tell you what, man, if Mike Evans is hobbled, if he's, misses this game, of course, I think Chris Godwin, who I know TJ is going to talk about later, is in a really, really good spot here. I used him as one of my conviction picks for this week. I think Godwin is like a must start this week.
All right, thoughts and prayers to Andy about anything revolving Laporta moving forward. I just want to say that. All right, Now we're going to move to a new segment. We've got enough already. Fantasy narratives or players we are absolutely sick of. And I know, Matt, I can see the smile on Matt's face. He's ready to go off on something. Matt, what do you had enough of already?
Okay, I'll start positive here for my first one. I'll go negative a little bit later. Enough already with these people saying that the Colts don't have enough weapons, okay? This is a big talking point with all of the rookie quarterbacks like, oh, C.J. Stroud, he doesn't have enough weapons down there in Houston. I get it that none of you watched Nico Collins' film before this year, but like, come on, you're embarrassing yourselves now. We've seen that that's a pretty good situation. Dude, same thing in Indianapolis as well. Michael Pittman is a really good receiver, and critically, these guys are getting a big-time breakout from rookie wide receiver Josh Downs, who with Gardner Minshew, 30.4% target share for Michael Pittman, 25.3% for Josh Downs. They're both getting the ball underneath, but Josh Downs, dude, he is so good. He gets underneath targets, but he can get those downfield targets too. He wins outside of his frame. He reminds me an awful lot of Tyler Lockett. If you know me, you know I'm not throwing that word around lightly, a Tyler Lockett comparison. I love this guy. He's always open. The running backs also, I think they've got a nice tandem down there now with Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor. Like, enough already with saying the Colts don't have weapons. This is a pretty good and talented young offense.
Now, how about Zach Moss going off right as Jonathan Taylor gets paid? All right, Andy, what are you saying enough already for?
Well, I've seen quite enough Lamar Jackson criticism, both in my own mentions and on the shouty face morning talk shows, right? Like, I can't believe people are worried about Lamar Jackson. I can't believe anybody's disappointed in him. If you can seriously watch last week's game against Pittsburgh and tell me that that was on Lamar, I just don't even know what to tell you. Ravens receivers dropped officially, I think it was 7 passes in the game, including multiple touchdowns. Rashad Bateman had a brutal touchdown drop. Aguilar dropped a potential TD on which he could probably still be running. Mark Andrews couldn't really haul anything in. Lamar could have easily had a 300-plus yard day. Instead, it may have been, I don't know, the greatest 0 touchdown, 1 interception, sub 60% completion percentage game that I have ever seen. He was fantastic. He is absolutely bouncing back this week against a friendly Tennessee pass defense, a defense that allows over 8 yards per attempt. There's never a bad time to start Lamar Jackson. Oh, by the way, he's on pace for over 900 rushing yards this year. He's got 4 rushing touchdowns. He is just objectively great.
Somebody on this show may have given the Ravens a harsh grade today on Zero Blitz, which you can check out on Yahoo Sports in the app and YouTube. But it was really about the whole offense, not about. I can't defend myself. Matt, give me something else you got enough already on.
Yo, enough already with the Eric Bieniemy offense. I think this has been sneakily one of the most disappointing new coach transfer situations here. Like, Washington's offense, and look, Ron Rivera obviously just threw Scott Turner under the bus. He's promoted Scott Turner in the past. That's great, but that was clearly like I got to fire somebody after a disappointing season. We're going to go ahead and fire this guy. Yeah, it's definitely all Scott Turner's fault that they brought in Carson Wentz last year. This offense has underperformed so far. I know Sam Howell's looked decent at times, and he's a young quarterback. I get that, but look, Terry McLaurin leads this team right now with a 16% target share. That's a joke. All right. And I like Curtis Samuel. I like Logan Thomas. And obviously I like Jahan Dotson. But those guys should be your featured pieces. We're having De'Ami Brown mixed in here. We're having Jamison Crowder in the year 2023 run routes against the Bears. You know, Byron Pringle because he used to play for the Chiefs. Like, that is embarrassing stuff, okay? You have a talented wide receiver trio. Unless there's injuries, and I know McLaurin had the toe in the preseason and Dotson had a little ankle thing going on. So if that's the reason, hey, Eric Bieniemy, I apologize. That's fine. But that should be your featured piece here. This isn't the Chiefs offense. Good coaches revolve their scheme around personnel, and that is not what's going on in Washington right now. And oh, by the way, like, maybe let's mix up the protection scheme so that Sam Howell is not on pace to take 99 sacks. I know some of it is Sam Howell's fault, but it's not all his fault if he's on pace to take 99 freaking sacks.
I love, like, some people take you to church with their monologues. You just took us to Hot Take Heaven. That was amazing work. Harmon's Hot Take Heaven is going to be a new segment on that. I love it, every ounce of it. All right. Speaking, while you catch your breath for a second, each week we take a deep dive in special guests from around the fantasy community. Matt and TJ Hernandez of 4 for 4 are breaking down some DFS values for this week. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, TJ, I'm still trying to collect myself after how upset I got about this Washington offense, but
I know it's going to be hard to follow up that heat you just brought. We're going to try to cool it down a little bit with some DFS.
Yeah, definitely. DFS always gets the people completely cool. Nobody ever gets upset about this whole thing. So let's definitely take a let's take a level-headed approach to this process here. You're going to unveil some really good value picks for this week. I'm excited to hear it. Let's start at the quarterback position.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence at $26 against the Colts. This is 4-for-4's top value of the week at the quarterback position. This game is setting up really nicely for a lot of players on both sides. You mentioned Josh Downs. I think both passing games in this game are ones we should be targeting. This is the only game on the main slate where both teams are top 10 in neutral pace, and Jacksonville's top 10 in passing rate over expectation. The matchup here for the Jaguars is especially enticing. The Colts are 27th against quarterbacks when we adjust for strength of schedule. One thing I really like about Trevor Lawrence, whether in DFS or in your redraft leagues, he is 8th in rushing yards among quarterbacks. So he does have a sneaky rushing floor. More rushing yards than Josh Allen this year. I know Josh Allen isn't running as much as we're used to, but people will blindly plug in Josh Allen for the rushing floor and not really put Trevor Lawrence on that same level. We have Lawrence projected as the QB3 on the main slate. He is the QB8 by salary. And again, going back to redraft, I don't know if people that have drafted him as a starter are resorting to benching him yet. He is the QB19 in points per game, but if you're thinking about it, I don't think this is the week to do it. But DFS-wise, easily the top value of quarterback.
I like that call. Like slowly but surely, brick by brick, I think they're getting all the pieces together there in Jacksonville, and we could see an eruption at any time. Hey, this running back you're about to talk about here, I kind of ended up not like proactively, but somehow ended up with a lot of Alexander Mattison this year. So tell me why I'm going to feel a little bit better about it this week.
Yeah, this one is kind of angled more towards players that are playing something like the Sunday Baller, where you're playing against 10,000 plus other entries and you're looking to get a little bit unique, because I do think people are going to shy away from Madison a little bit, even though he is $19 as a favorite against the Bears. We know how bad that Bears defense has been, 31st in schedule adjusted points to running backs. I think people might be a little nervous about Madison because he did lose touches to Akers last week, but from a DFS leverage standpoint, on the other side, if Roschon Johnson plays, he'll probably be one of the most popular running backs on the slate at $12. Similarly, at almost the same salary, Joe Mixon at $18 is probably going to be right next to Roschon as the most popular running back on the slate. So you get a salary pivot off of Mixon with Madison, and you get leverage in the same game off of Roschon. So we're kind of playing for the ceiling, hoping that the running back pie is a little bit bigger. With Justin Jefferson out, maybe the Vikings go a little more run heavy against a really bad run defense here.
All right, this next one up here, this wide receiver, I tried to not steal your thunder on this one because Andy asked me about Mike Evans and the Chris Godwin thing a little earlier. So you tell the people why Chris Godwin is in a really nice spot here in week 6.
I think whether Mike Evans plays or not, Godwin is a great value. He's a start in redraft, and he's a DFS value. If Evans is out, obviously everybody's going to play Godwin at $16. He's going to be the number one guy there. But even if Evans is active, I think Godwin is a guy we should be targeting. When we see players with hamstrings like Evans had a couple weeks ago, they often miss 2 to 3 games. So we're like right at that 2-game mark with them coming off the bye. But even when they are active, usually a drop in about 15 to 20% of fantasy production. Evans, as you mentioned, DNP on Wednesday, maybe nothing to look at too hard, but limited practice on Thursday. We'll see how Friday goes. With Evans exiting early in week 4, we saw Godwin get 37% of team targets, and now they're facing Detroit, who is arguably the biggest pass funnel in the league. They are number 1 against running backs when we adjust for strength of schedule, bottom 10 against quarterbacks and wide receivers. So Godwin is a smash at $16. If he gets to play alongside Evans, we might get him at a depressed roster rate.
I like that, and I think Chris Godwin's starting to look a little bit better against man coverage after what we saw last season, so that's good to see with Chris Godwin. All right, talk to me about Evan Ingram. You talked about Trevor Lawrence. Why is the trickle-down going to come to his tight end position here?
Yeah, I mean, we go to Lawrence, and that's the classic, our own old friend Rummy, the syrup over the pancakes. But if we're going to pick one of the pancakes, Evan Ingram here at $19. It's all these guys are kind of bunched together in salary. Evan Ingram's at 19, Ridley's at 17, Kirk is at 19. If we look at some other DFS sites, Ingram is way lower in salary. Here he is priced the same or higher than the other guys. So hopefully, again, going back to those big tournaments, we might get him at a reduced rostered rate in a tournament like the Baller. And Ingram, one of 4 players over the last 4 weeks to see at least 8 targets in every single game. The other players in that group, Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, are right up there, as well as his teammates. So double-digit Yahoo points just once, despite those 8+ targets in 4 straight game. He's 4 for 4's top value at his position.
All right, I asked you for one deep pull
Yeah.
for this week, and you unveiled a certain Texan, not my guy Nico Collins, but a different pass catcher here.
Dalton Schultz at $11 against the Saints. This week is interesting because on Yahoo, a lot of times we'll get guys in this $10 to $12 range where we could kind of punt the position. We don't have a lot of obvious ones this week, but Schultz down at 11 does pop as a top 3 value at tight end of 4 for 4. Tank Dell, back-to-back, did not practice his in concussion protocol. With Dell leaving early last week, we saw a 31% target share go to Schultz. This equated to 10 targets. And if we look at 4 for 4's expected fantasy points model, he is similar to Kittle, more expected fantasy points than Kmet, just hasn't turned it into a big game yet. But if Dell is a no-go, I think a lot of people will be looking at Nico Collins, might be a little shy to pull the trigger on Schultz. So again, going back to those Yahoo tournaments, really like Schultz, hoping we get him at a reduced rostered rate.
All right, TJ, appreciate you, buddy. You all out there, if you're playing DFS and you're not following him at TJ Hernandez, and you're not listening to him on the DFS MVP, as the shirt says, you are doing it wrong. Good luck to you in week 6, TJ. Appreciate it.
Good luck, buddy.
All right, Andy, I don't know how we top that, but we'll try. Fantasy face-off, this is the either or. I'm going to give you a quarterback because we don't do a lot of quarterback talk around here. We're going to go to a quarterback, figure out if you like this quarterback or a different one. Matt Stafford is the quarterback that we're going to prop up here. Matt Stafford is the statue here. So Matt Stafford or Brock Purdy, who you got?
It feels wrong at some level to pick against MVP candidate Brock Purdy, but this really sets up as a game against Cleveland where maybe he's only attempting like 19, 20 passes in this one. I want Matt Stafford here, and I have really talked myself into Stafford like for season-long purposes. Just traded for him in a Superflex league. Cooper Kupp is back. He looked great. Puka Nacua didn't go away. Stafford himself is averaging 40 pass attempts per week. He's facing the number 26 pass defense in the league this week in Arizona. It's a great spot for him. I'm gonna lean Stafford here.
Shout out to Harmon, who's been saying for weeks that Cooper Kupp would not derail Puka Nacua. All right, so now let's go Matt Stafford or Jared Goff.
This one's so close. It's old Rams quarterback versus current Rams quarterback. I actually have Stafford one spot ahead. Again, maybe this is me just being irrational with Matt Stafford because he looks so much like vintage Matt Stafford lately. I've got nothing bad to say about Goff. Both of them throwing to great receivers. Hard to go against the guy who gets to throw to Sam Laporta when he's healthy. But I think volume and I think matchup favor Stafford here.
By the way, it's rare for 2 teams to win in a trade, and I think you could make the argument at this point that both the Rams and the Lions are happy with the trade and the way that went down. Matt Stafford versus Captain Kirk Cousins. Who you got?
This is probably gonna be the first spot where I pick against Stafford. I gotta go Kirk here. And it's a problem not to have Justin Jefferson, right? But the Chicago pass defense has just been so poor on the season. They give up 8.3 yards per attempt. They've given up 12 passing touchdowns. Huge weeks to such luminaries as Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love, Russell Wilson, Sam Howell, right? I think Kirk Cousins is next in this line. I think he has a 300-plus week.
All right, and let's get one more in here. Matt Stafford or C.J. Stroud, the phenomenon?
Yeah, Stroud has obviously been fantastic. Hasn't yet thrown an interception, which is absolutely ridiculous. But he does have New Orleans this week. That's the league's number 4 pass defense. They actually have more interceptions so far on the season than touchdown passes allowed. This is as tough a spot as Stroud is really going to face. And I think I want, again, the matchup here so clearly favors Stafford. The talent of his receivers is pretty overwhelming. So this is going to be Stafford for me, too.
All right, let's bring Harmon back in because I want to have a discussion about one of the biggest games that we have all weekend. We like to take a look at one particular game and some of the angles around it. This week, let's take a look at Chargers, obviously taking on the Cowboys. This is a big game for both teams, not just from a fantasy standpoint, but also from where their seasons are headed. Andy, what's on your mind with this game particularly?
Well, the Chargers defense has really been sort of the get-right game fantasy-wise for a bunch of running backs this year. Josh Jacobs, Alexander Mattison, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be Tony Pollard week. You have a few days now to try to make a trade offer here. I think he's a buy low. I think he's just a great player who's been a minor disappointment to his managers. Hasn't reached the end zone since opening week. I keep hearing about it from people, but the yardage has generally been there. He's had at least 60 total yards each week, over 100 scrimmage yards a couple times. And then there's the other thing. He is just getting fed in the red zone. He is getting all those Zeke Elliott carries from last year. He leads all backs in red zone carries and carries inside the 10 and inside the 5. We are finally going to have the multiple touchdown game that you've been waiting for here. I think it happens this week against the Chargers.
Yeah, and I think when we watch this game, too, there's a reminder, not just with Pollard, but with also CeeDee Lamb, who I know was earlier picked in our primetime players. But, like, Dallas is fine. Everybody wants Dallas to either be terrible or Dallas to be great. Like, everybody wants to have some huge Cowboys hot take. Getting your ass kicked by the 49ers is not foreign to most NFL teams. It's going to happen to a lot of teams across the spectrum throughout the course of the year. Losing to the Cardinals or playing the way they played against the Cardinals particularly, it sticks in people's minds. And yeah, it's inexcusable, but it felt like they came out and laid an egg. That also happens to most teams. I don't know that we've seen anything yet from the Cowboys that suddenly has me jumping off ship or on ship for what Dallas is going to look like by the end of the year. What difference is Mike McCarthy going to make in the play calling? Well, his job was to try and cut down on the interceptions. What can you see right now? There's a little bit of hesitation in everything that they're doing offensively. Will that calm down over the course of the year? Yeah, I think so. Like, everybody's in a panic mode with the Chargers that they have on their fantasy football roster. I just feel like by week 8, by week 10, by week 12, the Cowboys are going to be just fine. And all this yelling and screaming about who the Cowboys are is just going to be wasted air. That's my take on this. Harmon, what do you got on this game?
Yeah, I'll look at the Chargers side. As Austin Eckler told us on Eckler's Edge, he's 99% going to play in this game. I think we will probably see him back. And I'm very curious what his return does to this offense, Fitz, because I think it will obviously boost up the run game. They were historically rushing success rate in week 1. They were historically good in that metric. So I think he's obviously going to boost there. But the passing game role is interesting because I'm struggling to see if 3 things can be true. Can Austin Eckler get a really, really strong target share in this offense like we're used to? Can Keenan Allen remain the target hog of this offense? And then 3, will we all not be whining and complaining about Justin Herbert's average depth of target on the internet again? Because if you're throwing the ball a lot to your running back and you're throwing your ball in throwing the ball to these like designed looks to the slot receiver, they're running these like kind of slant passes where they got 2 guys out blocking. Your ADOT's going to be low unless Quentin Johnston steps up, and he didn't look like he was ready to step up against your Raiders, Fitz. So I think there's a lot of things at play here that Austin Eckler's return might move kind of the target distribution around in this offense.
And you mean people are going to overreact to something with Justin Herbert? Never! All right.
Yes.
It's just amazing that happens every week. Now we get to our favorite part of the entire show. Just think of this as like our week of practice. All leads up to this. It is our time for the hurry up offense. We're huddled up, 25 seconds on the clock. First question's already there. Question number 1, Kevin asks, I think I'm starting Russ versus Kansas City. Other option would be Howell versus Atlanta. Andy, what should he do?
I love it. This isn't even a question. This is just a guy who's resigned to starting Russ. Yeah, you probably have to do it. I don't think you can start Howell against Atlanta here when you have a situation where Russell Wilson, who, as Matt has said earlier, he's been fine. He's been okay. We have some multiple touchdown games. He's probably going to be chasing points late in this one, so give me Russ.
I don't know. Maybe you just leave that roster spot blank and see what happens. Look, Andy got done too quick. All right, now we got question number 2. This one coming to Matt. Tabitha asks, Week 6 advice. Full flex PPR need 1. All right, so we need 1. Amari DeMarcado, Jerome Ford, Joshua Palmer, or Jonathan Taylor. What do you got, Matt?
Yeah, I get why you're throwing Jonathan Taylor in the bucket with these fellas based on the usage last week with Zach Moss, but I think that might have just been a 1-week thing. Moss isn't going away, but Jonathan Taylor should remain an every week play in your lineup.
Woo! Oh, the whistle got him that time. The whistle got him, Andy. You're up.
Listen, no. If I'm on the last word, if I finish at the whistle, I think maybe Fitz is on a delay here.
This is taking time away from Andy. Jahan Dotson and Rashee Rice, 12-team half-point PPR redraft. Oh, they were kind and waited to start the clock on that, Andy. Isn't that so generous of them to do that?
So they're too kind. They're too kind. Yeah. I can tell you that I wish the right answer here were Jahan Dotson, and I wish it were perfectly clear. We just haven't seen it outside of like one game. I'm probably going to go Rashee Rice here. I expect Kansas City to just sort of pick their number in this one, facing the league's worst defense. Talked about Rice a little bit already. He's great.
There's a flag on that one, too. Greasy Brickio. I don't even know how to say Greasy's last name, but shout out to the first name. Mayfield or Stroud? What do you got in this one, Harmon?
Oh, no. I really don't want to say Baker Mayfield here, but I think I'm going to have to say Baker Mayfield here. CJ Stroud's been on a heater. He's been awesome. But again, I'm really concerned about this matchup with Dennis Allen and this secondary that's just playing simpatico right now. Great communication. I think Mayfield in what could be a high-scoring game.
No, we're on the edge, boys. We're playing with fire right now. Taco Tuesday says, tough decision looming for me this week. Half-point PPR. Who to flex? Zach Moss, Jahmyr Gibbs, Garrett Wilson. I'm leaning Wilson due to the matchup, but thought I'd at least ask the licensed fantasy professionals first. Smiley face. Andy, what do you got?
Yeah, thank you. Fully licensed and accredited fantasy professional. I don't think you can go Gibbs, first of all. He's a backup. Andy's injured. We don't even know if he's going to play. So it's Moss or it's Wilson. I don't think Moss is going to have the same role that he had last week with Jonathan Taylor coming back. So it's Wilson. Definitely
lay a game on that one. Patrick says, should I put Brian Robinson in the flex or keep a receiver like Myers, Brown, or Nico Collins in it? Andy, what do you got?
Oh, man, I don't know how you don't play.
That's my fault. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I got it. I got to play Jacoby Myers. All these guys are great. Like, your receiving options here are absolutely incredible. Brown has been fantastic this season. Obviously, Nico has had some blow-up games, but this is Myers for me if I'm only picking one.
It's 2 straight delay of games here. Rex says, please give me one to fill my RB2 in my 14-team quarter PPR. Hall, Algier, Foreman, Achane went down, and I need the best play. Thank you. Prayer hands. Matt Harmon, what do you got for him?
Well, this is going to be so easy and so quick. I can thank you for not throwing me the last question to have to pick between all of those really good receivers, and I can easily just say with 3 seconds left, Breece Hall is back!
Oh, look at that. Was well done. Okay, Harmon's back on the clock. That was too easy. Matt says, I have a question regarding start from my 10-team PPR, full PPR, start 2 or 3. Andrews, Brown, Gabe Davis. Thanks. What do you got, Harmon?
Matt, buddy, is there like no tight ends? Is this one of those satanic leagues where they erase the tight end position here? I think if you're going 2, you're gonna go Mark Andrews, and you're gonna go Marquise Brown in a more competitive game.
Oh, in just under the wire, seasoned professional Kevin says, PPR League, Madison, Ramondre, Roshan, McLaughlin need one from this group. Andy, give him the one he needs.
Yeah, I don't know where people find the strength right now to start Ramondre Stevenson. It hasn't been great. That offense hasn't been great. I'm going to go Alexander Madison here against a very user-friendly Bears defense. Roshan would get interesting if he plays, but Madison is just kind of a lock here.
We always have a blast, and you guys can keep hitting us, obviously, on social media. #AskFFL. Get all the questions answered for the entire weekend. Join us every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Check out the whole library of podcasts, including the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. We're out there in the Yahoo Sports app. If you've never checked it out, be sure you do. Great way to get involved in the conversation with everybody in Yahoo Fantasy as well. Check back in Sunday morning for the latest on player injuries, and our own Scott Pianowski will be answering your last-minute questions on social media at #AskFFL. Most importantly, the 3 of us will be trash talking all weekend long for our primetime picks. You can absolutely guarantee that. Good luck to all your teams in Week 6. Thanks for hanging out with us. For everybody behind the scenes that works their tails off, thanks for spending time with Fantasy Football Live. We'll see you next week.